Hey YouTube, league tournament today. All three leagues are on: Great League, Ultra League, Master League. I expect most people to play Great League. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over top Great League teams, including one with the new number one ranked Pokemon, Giratina Altered, the Shadow version. First, I'm going to go over why it's the number one ranked Pokemon, why, why it's number one ranked, and why it still doesn't look amazing, but it probably is amazing. And I'll go over all that right now. So Giratina Altered has sort of everything that you'd want in a Pokemon for GBL. It has that low attack, high defense and stamina, 105 attack, low attack, 126 defense, 162 stamina, 2100 overall, right? So right off the bat, you got the stats distribution that you want. Next, we'll go to the moveset. You have Shadow Claw. Yes, the damage on all these moves looks higher because you get a 20% damage bonus because of the Shadow. But, you know, that's what we're using. So let's look at these numbers. Shadow Claw, one of the best fast moves in the game in terms of damage and energy. So now you're just bumping up that damage on the Claw anyways, which makes it even better. So 4 energy per turn, 4.32 damage per turn. And then you're spamming really quickly these charge moves. Now, these charge moves are not amazing, but they come quick, right? Dragon Claw, 10, 8, 10, 8. And Shadow Sneak, 12, 12, 10, 12. You can notice that they're both 72 damage. Basically, you are only throwing Dragon Claw unless Dragon Claw is resisted. So if you're against a Fairy, if you're against a Steel, or if Shadow Sneak's super effective against like a Ghost or Psychic, then you can go Shadow Sneak. Otherwise, you're probably just showing Dragon Claw. So you got, yes, not hard hitting, but spammy. 72 damage, 72 damage. And just for comparison's sake, when you look at, I know that Dusclops is not a Shadow, so these numbers are lower, but you know, you're using Hex, which charges quick, but you know, 4 energy for the Shadow Claw versus 4.33, but only 2.8 damage per turn. And then these damages are only 66 and 60. So right now it seems like, yes, you lose. Obviously the bulk on this is also insane, and you're not losing the 20% defense like you are on Giratina. That leads us to our typings. And Dusclops is just a pure Ghost. So Ghost is weak to two things, Dark and Ghost. And then it resists a bunch of things. It resists fighting, normal, bug, and poison. So those are the 4 just resistances for Ghost. What Giratina does, it adds a second typing, Dragon. So Dragon picks up 3 weaknesses, which I don't love in itself, 3 weaknesses, but those weaknesses are Dragon, Fairy, and Ice. And those 3 typings are not as prevalent in especially the Great League right now. Dragon's pretty much non-existent, Regidrago maybe, but barely any other dragons. Ice, not a lot of Dugongs, not a lot of Sandslash right now. So the Ice is actually kind of much lower than it has been in previous seasons. And I think that's also a mixture of Grass being lower, because Grass is non-existent in the meta right now because Steel got buffed, Poison got buffed, Bug got buffed, and all those beat Grass. So Grass has become almost irrelevant, which means there's less Ice users. Fairy, there's a couple, not as many Charm users, again, because Poison got buffed. So less Wigglies. I haven't really seen any Darkspun, so less Charm users. Tink Tong's obviously out there. Dedene's out there. But that's where the Dragon comes in. You end up picking up 4 resistances. Electric, Fire, Grass, and Water. I mentioned Grass is kind of irrelevant this season. Electric is more relevant because all the parabolic charge buffs. Fire seems to be everywhere. Again, Steel got buffed and Bug got buffed, and Fire hits super effective against both. You're actually going to see a Bastiodon team tomorrow because there was too many Typhlosion Talonflames out there. So I got a Bastiodon Great League team coming tomorrow because the Fires are actually on the rise, and some Fires got buffed. And Water has been relevant in the Great League forever. So all of a sudden, you got the stats that are very similar to Dusclops. You got a better fast move. You're hitting at the spamming, just almost as the same spam rate, but harder. And you pick up 3 weaknesses that aren't really in the meta, and you pick up 4 resistances where 3 of them are very much in the meta. And so that alone should just make sense that, like, oh yeah, this thing actually will be better than Dusclops, and Dusclops is already a top 5 to 10 Pokemon. So it makes sense that this is so high. Now, when I first did the analysis and I simmed it in the one shield, I kind of discounted it because of its record. It has a 23 and 24 record with a 496 average. That does not jump off the board to me, right? You have a losing under 50% win percentage, and then you have a under 500 average, right? So I was like, is this thing even going to be as good? And then like some of your losses, I started thinking through it. I'm like, you know, there's a bunch of normal typings. not a bunch, but there's at least a few normal typings in Wiggly and Ferret. There's the fairies in Tinkatong and Dedenne. Yes, there's Duong, not as much, but Lapras has Ice Beam. And then there's a bunch of darks, like Mandibuzz, Galarian, Moltres is out there. Jumpluff with a Fairy Wind beats you. Freaking Gastrodon just as a Mud Slap user beats you. And I was like, is this not as good as oh yeah, Drapion's a go-to safe swap still. I was like, is this not? Even Credilli with Acid. And Acid is resisted, beats you. So I'm just like, is this thing not as good as I think it is? Yes, you pick up, let's go to the other end. Obviously, the bugs, the fires, everything that you're resisting, the fighters, poisons. So you pick up some good wins, Clodsire, Annihilape, Talonflames, whichever, right? But you're still losing quite a lot. You're losing some of these quite hard, which is why you have a lower than 50% average and a lower than 50% win rate. So I'm like, okay, like maybe in the different shield scenarios it plays better. In the 2s, you're 25, 21. Maybe in the 0s, I haven't actually looked at this yet. But in the 0s, no, your 0s, you're 16 and 30. So I'm like, this is off. There's no way a number 1 ranked Pokemon would only have a good 2 shield scenario and a mediocre 1 shield and a bad 0 shield scenario. And then I actually just started filming this, and I'm like, I'm sure all these other Pokemon in the top have good in the 1 shield scenarios, right? So I'm like, let's start with Diggersby. Diggersby has a 20 and 28 record. Now, notice the average is 509, which means that even your losses, you're not losing as hard in some of the wins you're picking apart. So your average is better, but you're 20 and 28. And then I'm like, okay, let's just compare it to Dusclops, because Dusclops is like the equivalent of it. 18 and 28 with a 473. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then I'm like, I forget what the third random I picked was. Clodsire. I'm like, okay, Clodsire was the number 1 Pokemon forever. Clearly, it has to have a better win average in the 1 shield scenario. 23 and 24 with a 490, which is very similar to what Giratina is. So it's just like, oh, maybe just in the 1 shield scenario, these things don't sim as well as they play. So this is where one of those, like, again, check the different shield scenarios. And this is one of the things, like, I've used Dusclops enough to know, like, the spam, yes, it's annoying. It's slow. I'm sorry, not slow. It just doesn't hit hard, but the spam comes at a crazy pace. Sorry, my kids are jumping around all over the place. It spams at a crazy rate. So I think Giratina, with very similar stats to Dusclops, but a better fast move, hitting harder, and the picking up all those resistances, should be like a top 5 Pokemon probably. The only thing I will say in general, like, I don't even know, I said I shot my Ultra League video first. I said I was going to do this analysis, and I'll quickly do it here, but it does not matter because there's no purified version. Because the question you usually ask is, do I need the shadow version? Now, there's no purified or non-shadow version in the rankings because we have not had the opportunity to get Giratina altered under 1500 before, and the shadow's number 1 ranked, so it's like, why would you play around with that? The general consensus on shadow version is, do I need to, can I output more damage to take them out in less moves without them taking me out in less moves as well? So just to give you an idea, let's put in Giratina altered, non-shadow, and Giratina altered shadowed here. So the 2, I won't sim the IVs for now, but you actually do pick up 3 wins and like 18 average, and this is kind of what I thought would happen. It doesn't happen in the Ultra League, and I actually explained why it does not happen in the Ultra League, so check that video out this afternoon. But in the Great League, what you're probably doing is, instead of let's look at just a Primeape, you are probably now, I mentioned the Ultra League, everything in Ultra League is so bulky, so usually it took like 5 or 6 Dragon Claws to take out something anyways, because you're staring down a level 50 bulky Pokemon. So it's like, okay, now instead of taking 6 Dragon Claws, it takes 5, but it still takes too long and your opponent's still throwing moves. The Great League is more glassy, and you have some pretty glassy Great League Pokemon, so maybe you were taking them out in like 3 or maybe even 2 before, but now you can maybe do it in 1 or 2 now. And let's just take a look at Primeape, because I'm pretty sure this is going to be an example. So 1 shield, Primeape, and then one Dragon Claw does not take out, and then they land the third Rage Fist. But now, I bet you that extra Shadow Claw bonus, yep, that's exactly what I expected. The Shadow Claw damage is now picking up, meaning that you are now only one Dragon Claw from taking out a Primeape. And this is what you're going to see, I think, a lot in the Great League. And let's look at some of the other ones. I mean, some of these are not as glassy, but like Azumarill, it's the same sort of thing. Like, it's probably, you need the sneaks, but it's just going to mean that you need one less sneaks. So like, they shield one, you land 1, 2, and a Dragon Claw, but you lose. Whereas in the Shadow version, now once you start landing those two, once you land these two and those extra claws that go through, a Dragon Claw actually takes out a Azumarill. So it's just that with that extra damage from the Shadow Claws and the extra damage from your charge moves, you are now taken out in one move less. And again, when you're going from 6 to 5 or 5 to 4 in the Ultra League, it's not as valuable. But now when you're going from like 5-4 to like 4-3, or we just saw in the Primeape from a 2 to a 1, now it's valuable, which is why it sims better in the Great League and why it probably plays better as a Shadow in the Great League. Okay, that was a lot of talking. So I haven't used it yet. I don't even think I have it yet, quite honestly. But Home Slice does, and he's tested it. So cover all your weaknesses. He uses Scizor and Lapras. Now, you can just kind of think of just Giratina lead, Lapras as your safe swap. Scizor covers your weaknesses, right? What I say? Fairy, Ice. So you cover sort of those weaknesses. I can see a bit of an issue with Dark on this team, right? Because you're hitting super effective Dark against Giratina. You're resisting the Psy Waves, and then the Night Slash is also resisted. So I think Dark's going to be a bit of an issue for this team. But overall, you have enough coverage for that. So again, just cover some of your weaknesses. Or, yeah, I actually did, cover some of your weaknesses. Fairies, some of the normal typings is kind of there. Now, Home Slice also hit #1 in the world, which is so funny to me because I had him for the interview. And I'm like, why? You're constantly like a top leaderboard player. Like, why aren't you playing like the Play Pokemon Championship? He's like, I'm not as good at these players. And then he hits #1 in the world on JBL. I'm just like, okay, cool. So he did it with Toedscruel, Lapras, and Dedenne. In his video, he basically said that it's a very strong Pokemon because Mudslap, it is grass ground, which in of itself is a unique typing. So you get those stab Mudslaps, but you can also just lower your opponent's defense with Wrap and then just like out spam, and it's got like decent bulk because it's a Tentacruel clone, like stat. So it's very good from that perspective. But he says you have a ton of problems with flyers. So that's why he paired it with Dedenne. And then Lapras just as your safe swap. Obviously, he likes using Lapras as a safe swap that we just saw multiple teams. And Lapras is a very good safe swap. It's bulky. And in fact, you're probably going to see it on my first team here. And I'll explain why I like Lapras in general and with this team. So this team, Lapras, Drapion, Superior, I was losing a bunch of Elo. And I was like, I got to go back to what is my bread and butter. And my bread and butter are spammy Pokemon who hit hard. So if you've been around on this channel for a while, I started with Swampert forever with the Hydro Cannons. And then Ninetales, I like the Overheat, but that was just kind of a fun one for me to use. But then I used Togedemaru with a Wild Charge. I liked using Morpeko with the Aura Wheel. Drapion has been a go-to safe swap forever. And the reason is Sparkling Aria here on Lapras, Crunch, Shadow Crunch on Drapion, and then Frenzy on Superior basically all do between like 90 to 120 damage per. So we just looked at, and it spams quick, right? So we just looked at Giratina, which with the Shadow bonus is only doing 72 damage. So Sparkling Aria comes at 12, 11. Frenzy comes at 12, 12, 10. And Crunches come at 10. So to spam at basically the same pace as Giratina, but do like 15 to 30 more damage per move is very valuable to me, which is why I put this team together. You know, Lapras is weak to Electric and Grass, and Superior can kind of deal with both of those, and Drapion is your safe swap. So it's a pretty balanced team. You have some bulk, The other thing I mentioned in this video is I don't want to do just a, I don't want to do just a, there's a lot of other Pokemon that spam at 10 that do over 100 damage, you know, Primeape, Morpeko. I just don't want a glass cannon team. So I wanted something like Drapions a little glassier, but Lapras and Superior actually have bulk. So having bulk and spam and putting a lot of shield pressure on is why I really like this team. And then you're going to see a lot of Dedenne and Scizor. So Dedenne, I just think is extremely strong this meta. I think Parabolic Charge needs to be nerfed. I've seen Belly Bolt enough in the Ultra League already, and I've kind of used it enough in the Ultra League to know that Parabolic Charge needs to be nerfed. And the same thing in this. I remember Parabolic charging 3 times that when I eventually went up against a Greninja, their Hydro Cannons did like 25%. Like it's kind of crazy how out of control Dedenne can get when you can Parabolic Charge and they don't have an immediate answer for you. If they have like a ground, sure, you have a problem. Like Clodsire walls this thing. But if they don't, this thing can get out of control. But you're going to be weak to ground. And what else? Poison. And a couple of, yeah, for sure poison, for sure ground. Maybe 1 or 2 other things I can't remember. So covered the main weaknesses with flying, Talonflame, and then Marowak is your go-to safe swap in case you need to try to flip switch. If you see that sort of ground lead safe swap Marowak, try to flip switch to get to, or else you just have no chance. So Dedenne, I already talked about that. So this is sort of like a very similar team. This is not mine actually. I was like, I haven't hit 2800 elo this season. This is Z, who is a constant leaderboard and legend, definitely legend, but constant leaderboard player. Dedenne, Credilli, Jellicent, same sort of concept. You're covering your ground weakness and poison with Jellicent, and then Credilli is your safe swap with that sort of acid grass knot rock tomb combo there. So very similar concept. Great minds think alike. Yes, you're gonna see Dedenne Scizor. I mentioned multiple times over the season. When I'm gaining elo, it's with Dedenne and Scizor. When I'm losing elo, it's with everyone else. So you see it a lot on the teams. Well, again, same. I can probably just skip this because it's the same concept. Safe swap and Dusclops. Cover your ground weakness with Wall Rain. Again, I wouldn't use Wall Rain. I just want to test it because I have it. It's definitely not as good. Okay, let's look at the other one. Scizor. Scizor, only one weakness. Weak to fire. So double weak to fire at that. So very straightforward. Cover that fire weakness. Get some bulk because Scizor is very glassy. So Jellicent, Dragalge, and Dragalge plays so much better with that acid. And kind of what I mentioned with what I just mentioned with Giratina at the start of the video, Dragon is a very nice typing for resisting what is a lot of the meta, right? Electric and water and fire and grass too, but it just resists a lot of the main things you see in the meta. So between that and the acid buff and getting to the air reach quicker, much better. Also resists fire. Jellicent resists fire. 2 things resist fire. 2 things that kind of act as safe swaps. Better on the spam. Got some bulk to cover those weaknesses up at the front there. I think this is the last one. Can't wait to see which one I use. Oh yeah, Scizor. I wasn't joking when I said Lapras. Same concept. Cover your fire weakness. Lapras has, or Clodsire as a safe swap. I think Lapras is safer as a safe swap here, and then Clodsire in the back to deal with fire as well. Now, do you have to use Lapras and Dedenne and Scizor? No. I do have a bunch of teams this week coming where I do not use those. I just have not gotten to showcase them, but there's ones I did earlier in the season. You have a Bastion team coming because of all the fires. You have a Sableye team coming because I haven't used Sableye yet this season, so I wanted to test to see how that went. I think there's also a Gastrodon team coming because that can kind of deal with Dedenne and Scizor. So I think I got a Gastrodon team coming too. So there's definitely other Pokemon to use. I got a Great League playlist if you just want to go check out the playlist and see all the other ones. They're organized through there. Or if you don't have these Pokemon, don't want to use this Pokemon, just think about logical substitutes that could potentially play in their role. Anyways, so that is that. I know a pretty big in-depth analysis on the Giratina, but it was the number one ranked Pokemon, so we had to analyze why. So let me know what you're playing. Let me know if you have a go-to team for the Great League that you're willing to share or want me to test out. appreciate the support. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.